Welcome to this third video session on MSME rehabilitation. During this session, we are going to discuss these three important issues. One is what is willful defaulter? What are the penal actions which we can take against willful defaulter? Second is what is the recovery process which we can take as legal recovery process or non-legal? And third is the asset reconstruction and asset reconstruction companies. What are their role? What are those companies? How does it help in resolving the NPA accounts? So let us first discuss the guidelines regarding willful defaulters. Why we are going to discuss it? Because in case any account promoter borrower is willful defaulter, then there are certain provisions of penal action against willful defaulter or any other guidelines for providing additional fund or facilities. So a willful defaulter is deemed to have occurred if any of the following events are noticed. What are these events? That in case there is a default in repayment obligations by the unit to the lender, even when it has the capacity to honor the said obligations. A unit is having the capacity to repay, but they are not repaying. Intentionally, they are defaulting. So they will come under willful default. Second is default in repayment of obligations by the unit to the lender and has not utilized the finance from the lender for the specific purpose. The borrower has taken loan, but it has not used the amount for the specific purpose for which the funds were given. So this will also be called a willful default. Then third one, default in repayment obligation by the unit to the lender, and where unit has siphoned off the funds so that the funds have not been utilized for the specific purpose for which finance was availed of, nor are the funds available with the unit in the form of other assets. So those funds are not used for the specific purpose, and those funds have been taken away from the unit and given to invested somewhere else. So that is called a siphoning of fund. That is also coming under willful default. We will discuss what is siphoning further. Then default of fourth point is default in repayment obligations by unit to the lender, and the borrower has also disposed of or removed the movable fixed asset or immovable property given by it for the purpose of securing a term loan without the knowledge of the bank. So in case there is default in repayment and the movable fixed asset which was either purchased out of the fund or was given as a security for term loan, which has been removed without the knowledge of the banker. So these four conditions, in all these conditions, the default will be called as a willful default. Now, what is the diversion of fund which we were discussing earlier? So diversion of fund will include utilization of short-term working capital for long-term purpose, not in conformity with though the funds may be with the unit only, but short-term, the fund was given for short-term working capital purpose, but they have been used for long-term purpose. So it is in violation of the terms of sanction. Then second definition can be deploying borrowed fund for purpose activities or creation of asset other than those for which the loan was sanctioned. The loan was sanctioned for X item, but it has been used for some other Y purpose. So this is also diversion of fund. Then transferring fund to the subsidiaries or group companies or other corporate by whatever modalities. The loan has been sanctioned, funds are taken from the bank or lender, and they have been used in the subsidiary or group companies. This is also diversion of fund. Then routing of fund through any bank other than the lender bank or members of consortium without prior permission of the lender. X bank has given loan and funds have been withdrawn and given to Y bank without the permission of the lender. So this is also called a diversion of fund. Investment in other companies by way of acquiring equity, debt instrument without approval of lender, without the permission of lender, the investment has been made in other companies. So out of the fund borrowed, fund have been borrowed by X bank and it has been invested in other companies which are doing well or not. So this is also diversion of fund. Shortfall in deployment of fund vis-a-vis the amount disbursed drawn and the difference not being accounted for. Suppose X amount has been disbursed as a loan, but the loan for the purpose of creating certain asset, but the asset created is for lesser amount than the X, and the difference is not accounted for. We are not able to know where the amount has gone. So this is also called a diversion of fund. Now let us come to the siphoning of fund. Siphoning of fund is construed to occur if any funds borrowed from bank or financial institution are utilized for purpose unrelated to the operation of the borrower. This is important. So the funds have been sanctioned by the bank or FI, but they are utilized for any purpose which is unrelated to the operation of the borrower. Whatever work they are doing, unrelated to that, to the detriment of the financial health of the entity or the lender. The identification of the willful default should be made keeping in view the track record of borrower. So whenever we are identifying that a account is under willful default or not, so its track record is also to be considered and should not be decided on the basis of isolated transaction. If one transaction or one incident has happened, that may be due to certain reasons which may be explored, but the track record of the borrower is more important for deciding the willful default. Default to be categorized as willful must be intentional, deliberate, and calculated. So these three words are important. That there should be intention of the borrower to do the willful default. It should be deliberate. They are knowing it, and calculated. They are doing it after proper planning and calculating. So it should not be by mistake or by some other casual something. But these elements should be present there. Then only the default will be called willful default. Now, what are the penal measures available for the bank or financial institutions in case of willful default? Let us discuss that. Penal measures are applicable to any willful defaulter with outstanding balance of rupees 25 lakh or more. So, limit of 25 lakh may be applied for the purpose of taking cognizance of the instances of siphoning or diversion of funds. So, as per guidelines, 25 lakh is the cutoff. So, if the funds diverted or siphoned off are 25 lakh or more, then these penal measures can be taken. Banks and FIs are required to initiate penal measures against the identified willful defaulter as under. Number one, no additional facilities should be granted to the listed willful defaulter. In case of willful defaulter, whatever his requirement are there, no additional facilities to be granted by the bank or FI. The entrepreneur or promoter of the company where bank FI have identified siphoning or diversion of fund, misrepresentation, falsification of account, and fraudulent transaction, such units should be, this is important, you will see, should be debarred from institutional finance from the scheduled commercial bank, development financial institution, government owned NBFCs, investment institution, etc. for floating new venture for a period of 5 years. For a further period of 5 years, no support is to be granted to them. They have to be debarred from the date of the name of the willful defaulter published in the list of willful defaulter. So these are the two. Then let us see others. Number third, initiation of legal process including criminal proceedings wherever necessary against the borrower, guarantor and foreclosure. So in such cases, immediate legal action should be taken for recovery of the dues expeditiously, including criminal proceeding, because it is a crime. They have not utilized the fund for the specific purpose for which they have taken. Banks and FI should adopt a proactive approach for a change of management of the willful defaulting borrower unit. Any such unit where a willful default is noticed, bank and institutions should start a try and explore for a change of the management. Banks and FI should put in place transparent mechanism of the entire process of identifying willful default, so that the penal provisions are not misused and the scope of such discretionary power is kept to the barest minimum. It should also be ensured that a solitary or isolated instance is not made the basis of imposing penal action. So one or two instances cannot be taken. All those three factors which we discussed, these three factors, it should be intentional, deliberate, and calculated. If these factors are available, then only the penal action should be imposed. Okay. Now calling up of advances, NPA recovery. So suppose there is any account where viability is also not there, compromise is also not happening, then ultimately we will have to call up the advance. Okay. So what are the implications of that? It may not be possible to rehabilitate all the sick units. There may be cases where there are absolutely no chance of rehabilitation. Further, there is no chance of compromise also, or it is not desirable due to special circumstances, maybe fraud or other things. So compromise is also not to be done. So in that case, recovery is the option available. In such case, recovery process is to be started. Since moving to a court is a time consuming, you know all that legal process is very lengthy, whether cumbersome also. So moving to a court is a time-consuming process and it involves heavy expenses. So all out efforts should be made to realize the bank's dues without recourse to a court of law. So we should try first to recover that without taking legal measure. Are we able to recover? However, where it is inevitable to take a decision to file a suit, it should be done without any time being lost, because process itself is lengthy. So without losing any time, we should start the process. Now, there are certain other guidelines for NP account. Interest income received by the bank can be classified as accrued or recovered or realized. So any income which is not recovered but due for payment, that is called accrued, or whatever part has been recovered of that is called recovered account, recovered interest amount. Traditionally, bank were following the accrual basis. In the past, whatever interest was due was being debited to the account and taken into accounts. Now, which do not reflect the correct position. Then IRAC norm, which are called income recognition asset classification norm, have been introduced by the RBI long back in post-reform period, according to which assets are classified into 4 categories. What are those 4 categories of NPA? Standard asset, substandard asset, doubtful asset, and loss asset, based on the period of account becoming NPA. And norms were refixed for income recognition in most of the cases on actual recovery. So after this, after once account becomes NPA, then income recognition will be on the actual recovery basis, not on the accrued basis. Whatever amount has been recovered, that only will go to the profit loss account. Now, what are the conditions for classifying a account as NPA? There are conditions. So we will discuss facility wise. Suppose it is a term loan. In case of term loan, if interest and or installment of principal remain overdue beyond 90 days, then only the account can be due for classification of NPA. The important thing is note the days. Interest or installment of principal remain overdue beyond 90 days, then account will become NPA. In case of overdraft or cash credit, if account remains out of order for beyond 90 days. What is out of order? We will discuss. Bill purchase and discounted when bill purchase or discounted amount outstanding remains overdue beyond 90 days from the date of payment, due payment, due date of the payment. So beyond 90 days, if it is not paid, then it will become NPA. In case of crop loan means short duration crop. Here we are discussing installment of principal or interest thereon remains overdue for 2 crop season. So for 2 crop season, if the interest and installment are not coming, then it will become NPA. In case of long duration crop, installment of principal or interest thereon remains overdue for 1 crop season, then account will be classified as NPA. In case of securitization transaction, amount of liquidity facility remains outstanding beyond 90 days. Then also such account which is under securitization transaction, it will be classified as NPA. In case of derivative transaction, overdue receivable representing positive mark-to-market value of a derivative contract which remains unpaid beyond 90 days from the specified due date of payment. In case of derivative transaction, there is a process of mark-to-market value of a derivative contract. So we have to see the value of that particular transaction as on date. As on date, the rate based on the market rate today. So if that amount, whatever some obligation comes for payment under the contract, if that is not paid up to 90 days, it is beyond 90 days default, then this account will also be classified as NPA. Now, what is the out of order which we were discussing in the previous slide? Out of order means here when outstanding balance remains continuously in excess of the sanction limit or drawing power, or so first condition is that continuous in excess of the sanction limit or drawing power, or outstanding balance is less than the sanction limit, though outstanding balance is below the limit, but no credit continuously for 90 days in the account. So continuously for 90 days in the account, there is no credit, though the limit is outstanding below the limit. Then also the account will be called out of order. Credits are not enough to cover the interest. Though there are credit in the account, but interest debit is more than the credit. Then also such account will be called out of order. Overdue, how it is different? Overdue is the unpaid amount due to the bank under any credit facility on due date. So on any due date, the amount is not paid, then amount becomes overdue. The general definition of a standard asset: Standard asset is one which does not have any problem and does not carry more than normal credit risk attached with the particular business in which it is engaged. So if any loan account where there is no any problem and there is no more risk other than the normal credit risk, then such asset is called a standard asset. Now, what are the categories of NPAs? We were saying there are different categories of NPA. So NPAs are being classified based on the period for which the asset has remained non-performing, as we discussed in the previous slides, and realizability of the dues into three categories. First is substandard asset. First category of the NPA, substandard asset. What are the parameters here? The account has remained NPA for a period not less than or equal to 1 year. Okay, and then it will be substandard asset. In such cases, the current net worth of the borrower or guarantor or market value of the security charged is not enough to ensure recovery of the bank's dues. Likely to sustain some loss if the deficiency. So in such case, if the deficiency not immediately corrected, then there is likely to sustain some loss by the bank or by the unit. Doubtful assets. These are the assets which remain in substandard category beyond 1 year. Then doubtful assets, recovery highly questionable and improbable, impossible. So such account which have remained substandard category beyond 1 year, they will be classified as doubtful assets. Now loss assets. Assets considered uncollectible and of little value but not written off wholly by the bank. Such loan account where recovery is not possible or very little value asset is available, but account is not fully written off from the books of the account, then it is called a loss asset. Continuance as bankable assets, although it may have some salvage or recovery value. Though the recovery value may be very little available, but it is continuing as a bankable asset. So such assets are called loss assets. Now let us come to the process of recovery. What are the legal and non-legal process of recovery? Prior to 93, banks had to take recourse of the long legal route against defaulting borrower. On average, a civil suit decision took anywhere between 5 to 7 years. If you go to court, this is the situation before 93. If you go to a court and if you file a civil suit, so at least 5 to 7 years will be taken in for getting the decision. After decision also, you have to enforce the decree, that also take further time. So the process was very lengthy. Now in 93, the Act for DRT Act has come. So under the Recovery of Debts to Bank and Financial Institutions Act 93, DRT was set up, and in different part of the country, debt recovery tribunals were set up for recovery of loans. This was a little easier process of recovery. This led to speedy recovery of the loan in about 1 year's time, as against the average of 5 to 7 years earlier. Against this 1 year's time, within 1 year, it was expected that the recovery may come. And 7 years required to see. However, DRT, there was a problem with DRTs also. What was the problem? DRT's progress suffered as they got overburdened with the huge volume of cases. Cases were more, but infrastructure was less. Currently, 3 legal options are available to bank for resolution of NPA. One is SARFAESI Act, second is DRT, and third is Lok Adalas. We will discuss this. What is SARFAESI? SARFAESI Act and SARFAESI what? So SARFAESI full form is Securitization and Reconstruction of Financial Asset and Enforcement of Security Interest Act 2002. This is SARFAESI Act 2002. What are the basic purpose and other thing? To speed up the process of recovery from NPA, the SARFAESI Act was enacted in 2002. The SARFAESI Act empowers banks or financial institutions to recover their non-performing asset without the intervention of the court. So this act was enacted to facilitate early recovery without going for the legal action. The act provides 3 alternative methods of the recovery of NPA. One is securitization, another is asset reconstruction, third is enforcement of security without intervention of the court. So these methods are available under this. Now, under this act, secured creditors are given the power to take possession of the securities in the event of default and sell such security for the purpose of recovery of the loan. So powers was given to the secured creditor to take the possession of the security available and for disposing of the same. However, there is a set procedure. You cannot just take possession and sell. There is a set procedure for that. The Act provides for enforcement of security interest by a secured creditor without intervention of the court in case of default in repayment or installment or non-compliance with the notice period of 60 days after the declaration of the loan as NPA. Loan is declared NPA, then some notice is given, and within 60 days, no recovery is coming, then powers are available for taking possession. Act also provides for setting up securitization company, reconstruction company, which are now called ARC, Asset Reconstruction Company, ARC, which acquire the NPA from banks. They purchase or they take over the NPAs from bank or financial institutions by raising funds from, they raise certain funds from qualified institutional buyers, and from that fund they take over the loans, NPA loans from the bank by issue, and they issue the security receipt for that purpose, and then they sell of these, they try to recover out of the asset. Okay. Then Act enables SC or RCs to take possession of the secured assets, including right to transfer and realize the secured asset. Once they take the possession, they have the right to either transfer, to sell, or to realize the secured asset by any mode. These ARCs act as a debt aggregator or agent of the bank or financial institution. So these asset recovery companies, they are an aggregator or agent of the banks or financial institution for recovery, for recovering the loan involved in the NPA account. Now these securitization companies or recovery companies they buy the impaired asset from bank and financial institution, thereby cleaning the balance sheet of the bank and enabling them to focus on normal. So once the loan account has been sold to ARC, then balance sheet of the bank becomes clean. Clean in the sense that NPA is not in the, now in the bank books, and they will have to recover the amount from ARCs as per the settlement. The SARFAESI Act 2002 allow bank and financial institutions to auction properties when borrower failed to repay their loan. So SARFAESI Act also allow banks to take possession of the properties and sell it for recovery. So bank can also take possession and sell. Banks give the defaulter a 60 days period to regularize the repayment. So they give a notice for 60 days. That is start repaying. On failure to do so, if the even after notice the company or the unit is not repaying the dues, banks can initiate the procedure of recovery under the above act and auction it to recover the debt. Recognized empaneled valuers determine the property value. So this is also a contagious issue. So what will be the value of the property? For how much amount you have sold? So that there is a system of valuing the property based on which bank fix a reserve or minimum bid price. Based on the value, they say that minimum price is this much, which we will accept for selling this property. Valuation tend to be on the conservative side as it is a distress sale. If the price fetched exceeds the bank's dues, then the excess amount is repaid to the borrower. Now, banks have to withdraw the case from DRT before sending notice under SARFAESI. So, in case already the case has been filed in DRT, and if instead of DRT, where recovery officers are appointed by DRT court and then recovery comes, instead of that, bank want to utilize their power under SARFAESI, then they will have to withdraw the case from DRT. Then only they can do. Now, what are the debt recovery tribunals or DRT? For helping financial institutions recover their bad debts quickly and efficiently, the government of India has constituted debt recovery tribunals and debt recovery appellate tribunals across the. What is the appellate tribunal? DRT is tribunal, and in case any decision has been taken under DRT and party want to appeal, then they can appeal to debt recovery DRT, debt recovery appellate tribunal. The debt recovery tribunal is governed by provisions of Recovery of Debt Dues to Bank and Financial Institutions Act 93, also popularly known as RDP Act. All recovery cases where overdue is above 10 lakh can be filed with DRT. However, this in September 18, this has been increased to 20 lakh. Against this, also some court cases going on. But legal position is that earlier this cutoff was 10 lakh. So overdue should be more than 10 lakh, or from September 18 more than 20 lakh. Then only the such cases can be taken under DRT. The presiding officer of a DRT is the sole judicial authority to hear and pass any judicial order. So he is the legal person who will take decision and pass the orders. The orders passed by recovery officer of DRT are judicial in nature. They are legal orders and are appealable before the presiding officer of the tribunal. So appeal against them can also be made under the for the tribunal. Debt recovery tribunal is fully empowered to pass comprehensive order like in civil court. So their powers are just like civil court. Tribunal can hear cross suit, counterclaims, and allow set-offs. The debt recovery tribunal can appoint. DRT can also do these activities. They can appoint receivers, commissioners, pass ex parte orders, add interim orders, apart from powers to review its own decision when appeal is made, and hear appeal against orders passed by the recovery officer of the tribunal. So any order which has been passed, appeal against the order can also be made to the DRT, and they can listen to it and examine and then again pass the orders against that after reviewing the situation. Now, legal action or suit filed for recovery which are not covered under DRT. So DRT we discussed. Now, without DRT, what we can do? When all persuasions and notices did not evoke any response from the borrower, a final notice should be sent conveying the financier's decision to resort to legal action. So if all persuasion and notices have not recovered, has not resulted into any recovery or any response, so final notice is to be given to the borrower or conveying there that we are going to adopt the legal, we are going to file legal suit for recovery. When the final notice evokes no response, a legal notice through a local advocate. So this was given by the bank or institution, then ultimately we should give the notice through local advocate. After waiting for sufficient time, as mentioned in legal notice, the financial institution can resort to legal action. So if even after that no response or no recovery is coming, then bank or the financial institution can go for taking action by filing a civil or any other suit. Now, following aspects should be noted in the process of recovery through legal action. Important parts, some discussion. Verification of plaint. Whenever we are filing a suit, we file by way of a plaint. So all the details mentioned in the plaint of the borrower, borrowings, and the list of documents, jurisdiction of court should also be mentioned. So all details are to be mentioned in the plaint. They should be verified by the concerned officer or representative of the financial institution. Initiating legal action. Once the suit is admitted by the court, then court issues summons to the borrower. The financier means creditor is known as plaintiff. Who is the plaintiff here? The creditor who has given loan, and the borrower is called debtor who has taken loan, is known as the defendant. Borrower is also called defendant. Financier will be called as plaintiff. Defendant may not contest the case. The court, on hearing both the sides, will issue a decree favoring the plaintiff. If it is accepting the plaint or the cases or detail given in the plaintiff, and if the court think that yes, they are eligible for doing the recovery, then they will issue a decree favoring the plaintiff. The creditor may seek an execution against the property of the judgment debtor. So once decree is obtained, then creditor may also seek an execution against the property of the judgment debtor. They will like to execute the decree and sale of the property, seeking attachment, and then attachment before judgment and sale before judgment is also prayed, because once decree is obtained, then in the meantime the party may dispose of the property. So immediately some execution is filed where a request is made that the property against which the recovery is filed should not be sold. So attachment before judgment is to be obtained. The legal and miscellaneous expenses should be incurred by the plaintiff and recovered from the debtor. So any expenses, legal or any other expenses, they also should be mentioned in the plaint, and they are to be recovered from the debtor. Postponement of filing of suit is possible under. So suppose we are going to file a suit, it also requires lot of time, lot of labor, lot of money. So in some of the cases, the filing of suit may be postponed. So what are those cases? If borrowers dealing with the bank in the past were satisfactory and the borrower guarantor are making effort to sell the stock and machines to reduce the outstanding liability. If the borrower himself is trying to sell off the property and trying to reduce the loan, then we can give some time. And but in the case borrowers dealing in the past should have been satisfactory. So there is activity of the enterprise and the unit is working on, profits are generated, cash production is going on. and any action by the banker would result in the closure of the enterprise. So if any action is taken, legal action is taken, then unit might have been closed, might have been required to be closed. So in such, and render recovery of dues more difficult. So in such cases also we may postpone the filing of suit. Where the borrower is honest, it is on the record and is not likely to resort to actions like sale of stock to utilize the time gap to misappropriate funds. So if borrower is honest and he is not doing anything to misappropriate the funds, then also we may give some time to him. Now let us discuss compromise offers. Where litigation is protracted means long, recovery is time consuming and expensive, compromise settlement are encouraged. Where we see that recovery will, court case will also take long time and recovery may also come, by that time asset quality may also reduce. So in such cases we may try for compromise settlement. Even though each case would have its own peculiarities, some common features are noted below. Some common features of the compromise offers or situations where compromise can be done. Causes for default are genuine and mainly due to factors beyond the control of the borrower. So in case the causes for default or earning losses by the unit are genuine and mainly the factors for them are beyond the control of the borrower. In that case, we may try for compromise. Need for compromise. In case of compromise, it avoids costly time consuming legal process. Yes. So where litigation is, okay, we were discussing need for compromise. It avoids costly time consuming legal process. Then in case of compromise, we retain the relationship because we can further deal with the same party. We can further grant the loan and further relationship will be maintained. Then psychological aversion to each other can be avoided. Once we do recovery process, go to legal recourse, then psychologically some enmity comes. So that can be avoided. Then third point is before accepting any compromise proposal, an estimate of the expected loss should be made. Loss on account of delay, if recovery through normal channel is contemplated, should also be estimated. So for accepting or chalking out the compromise proposal, loss is to be estimated. Now, regarding value of securities, a realistic estimate of the security available to the bank should be made by physical verification of the assets. So from which assets we are going to recover our dues. So realistic estimate of that has to be made. Where real estate or mortgage, a negotiated deal should be made to keep banks' losses to the minimum. Where we are having certain real estate as mortgage, so we should try to see that whatever value is available to us, compromise should not go to below that. At the first stage of compromise, information should be built on. These are the three dates on which the dues should be calculated just to proceed further for compromise. So information should be built on the date from which the unit was showing signs of sickness. We can see what was our amount outstanding on the date when the sickness started. From that date, we may give certain concessions and penal interest and other things. And date on which the activity ceased. So we can see what were the outstanding on the date when the activity stopped in the unit, and from that date further we can grant certain concessions and interest and other things. Date when the account became NPA, or the date when account became NPA, what were the outstanding. So information on these three dates should be built upon, should be calculated. Some of the concessions that can be extended in the compromise deal are the concessions which bank can give. Waiver of penal interest if charged. If penal interest is charged, then it can be waived. Waiver of interest from the date of account has become NPA. When account became NPA, from that date, we may waive the interest depending upon the situation of account and the situation of the security. Remission of a part of principal due. Whatever principal amount has been due, some part of that we can leave, where we can remit. Okay. Now let us come to asset securitization. What is asset securitization? Securitization is a form of financial instrument involving pooling of financial assets and the issuance of security that are repaid from the cash flow generated by the asset. So whatever financial assets are available, they are pooled at one place, and against that the securities are issued that are repaid from the cash flow generated by the asset. Whatever asset cash flow is coming, so the securities are repaid from that. The most common assets are credit card, mortgage, retail consumer loan, student loan, auto loan, corporate debt, MSME loan, export receivable. Against that, securitization can be done against any of the assets. Currently, trading in certificate or instrument related to securitization transaction cannot take place as they are not covered under the definition of SEBI Act 56 and its amendment in 2007. SEBI is expected to frame disclosure-based regulations that will specify eligibility criteria and other requirements that an issuer needs to fulfill before offering securitized debt instrument to public or getting them listed on a stock exchange. So SEBI has to make certain changes, then only they can be traded. Otherwise, securities are not being instrument. Otherwise, trading in certificate or instrument relating to securitization is not taking place. Now, what is the need for asset reconstruction companies? ARCs are established to acquire, manage, and recover liquid or NPAs from lenders, unlocking value trapped in them by an institutional platform. So these assets, these ARCs, they acquire or manage and recover all the illiquid or NPA accounts, and they focus on recovery, how they can recover the amount out of the assets. Okay, so what are the benefit of this? In case of such transaction, bank will be able to focus better on managing the core business, because now NPA account they have sold, they have against that they have got certain amount or certain security receipt, and now they can focus on their remaining business. So they will benefit in that. The transfer should help restore depositor and investor confidence by ensuring the lender's financial health. So bank's financial health will also improve, and depositor and investor confidence will come. ARCs can also help build industry expertise in loan resolution, because ARCs will focus only on recovery. So they will develop expertise in getting early loan resolution, besides serving as a catalyst for important legal reform in bankruptcy procedures and loan collection. So that will be another benefit. ARCs can play an important role in developing capital markets through secondary asset instruments. So they will be also play an important role in developing capital market for secondary instruments. SURFACE Act 2002 provides a framework for establishment, ownership, operation, and empowerment of ARCs in India. SURFACE Act contains all the rule regulation therein. The Act provides for ARCs to be registered with the RBI before ARC commences. So ARC, before it starts operation, it has to be registered with RBI. The Act also empowers the RBI to stipulate guidelines and directions. So RBI stipulate all the guidelines and directions and make changes under them for ARC. RBI has provided prudential norms and operation guidelines for the functioning and regulation of ARC. Act prescribes minimum capital for ARC. The Act also contains that, and it can be changed by any time by the RBI. So minimum capital is required. The Act provides for no single sponsor. Those having single sponsor means having 10% or more in the equity capital of the ARC to have a controlling interest. So nobody should have more than 10% controlling interest. Foreign investors may participate in equity capital of ARC registered with the RBI up to 100% on the automatic route. This is also permitted. Automatic. Now, transfer of asset to ARC. What is the procedure? What are some important points? The Act provides for transfer of financial asset, means loans, debenture, but not shares of the borrower unless the shares are collateralized for the loan, from banks and financial institutions, to ARC. So there is a procedure of transferring this financial asset to ARC. Upon acquisition of the ARC, the ARC becomes the legal and effective owner of the financial asset acquired and step into the place of the lender. Now all the rights available to lender are available to the ARC after taking over the financial asset. The Act also enables acquisition of financial asset through securitization. The assets are acquired by way of setting up a trust by ARC. So ARC establishes a trust and then trust acquires the asset. The financial assets are held in such trust for the beneficial interest for the investor. Security receipts are issued by trust of ARC, which represents such beneficial interest of the investor. Somebody will have to invest the fund with ARC, then only ARC will be able to purchase any financial asset, because it has to repay to the bank against that as per the contract. So ARC act both as trustee and manager of such trust. So when trust is established, ARC is also a trustee and it is also managing the trust, manager of the trust. Now, resolution empowerment. The Act provides right to the lender acting in majority, 75% by value. Okay, so lenders, 75% of the lenders will be agreeable for that, to enforce the security interest without judicial intervention. Lenders acting in majority are empowered to take possession of secured asset after giving 60 days notice to the borrower, and after the possession are entitled to sell, lease or manage the asset for realization of the dues. These provisions aim to overcome the procedural delay for the purpose of procedural delay. The Act accords the same powers for resolution as are available with the lender. So whatever powers are available to lender for realizing their dues, means taking legal action, selling other, same powers are available to the ARC also. These are the following power: restructuring of debt of the borrower. They can restructure of the debt also, settlement of debt of the borrower, enforcement of security interest, change in the business and management of the borrower, and sale or lease of a part of the whole business. All these powers which were available to the lender are also available to ARC. So this was a little discussion on the different rehabilitation package and recovery procedures available, and I hope this will benefit to the listeners. And my suggestion to you is that if you want to learn more about this, keep in touch with the RBI website where change any guideline is coming there, and you can search. Thank you very much.